good morning, or just about moving into good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our ELC Cafe. It's more than just lunch. Our focus this month is Hunger Action Month. And so we are happy to have an illustrious panel with us today. Those of you that are regulars know that we're doing things a little bit differently this month. We have our panelists sitting a little bit closer together. I hope that's okay for all of you. And rather than standing at the podium, we're sitting shoulder to shoulder. So you'll give us some feedback and let us know how that goes. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We are filming live today. Our videographer, as you can see, is straight ahead. And in just a couple of days, this will be put up on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to download and share with your coworkers and your loved ones, and it'll be a great opportunity to have a long-term record or archive of our conversation together today. Please silence your cell phones. If you need to leave the room, please leave behind the camera. And we are broadcasting live to our 350 employees across 11 service centers in 2 counties. And so with that, I'll say on with the show. And again, thank you to everyone for joining us today. America is so often referred to as the land of plenty, but that is not always the case. As we searched for themes, topical themes, and themes that we thought we would be well served in investing time and talent and trouble in teasing out a little bit, and especially looking for an equity lens toward those themes, it was very easy to decide on hunger action for the month of September. We are very blessed today to have a powerhouse panel here with you. And again, something we're going to do quite differently today. Rather than having me standing in front of you with my 60-year-old eyes trying to read the bios, we're going to give our panelists their due today. And they're going to have an opportunity to spend about 5 minutes telling you a little bit about themselves, who they are, the kind of work they do, how it relates to hunger, and what brought them to this work. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Paco Velez, who is directly to my left, is the president and CEO of Feeding South Florida. It is one of the largest, or the largest, not-for-profit agency in South Florida, so I am told. And we are very happy to have Mr. Velez here with us today. We have Shante Haymore-Kearney. I said that correctly? Thank you. And Shante is the program manager for an agency called Common Threads, a multi-state agency that has a very innovative approach to working with children and families in educating about food and anti-obesity. We are also blessed to have an ELC staff member with us today, Carla Adrian. And Carla is a community activist. Aside from working in our finance department here at the ELC, she is a community activist that runs a small not-for-profit in the Dominican Republic. And she's going to share her story today, as well as Gabby Cordell, whose story Carla shared with me, I guess it was this time last week. And we certainly felt confident that we wanted to have you on the panel to share in this discussion. Ms. Cordell has been voluntarily and through her own resources feeding large numbers of folks in the homeless community. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy hearing her story today. So with that, I'm going to punt to Mr. Velez. And if each panelist you have about 5 minutes to give us an overview, who you are, what you do, and why you do this work. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. So I'm Paco Velez, and I come from Texas. So I was at the San Antonio Food Bank there for 12 years, which is a Feeding America affiliate. Moved here April 2012, and I took on Feeding South Florida, and I've been here for 4.5 years. So Feeding America is a national organization that has 200 member organizations, 200 member food banks across the country and in Puerto Rico. What we do is primarily distribute food from those who have it to those who need it. And here in South Florida, we rescue and distribute food from Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, and the Keys to 784,000 individuals struggling to put food on the table in these 4 counties. Not only do we work with farmers, growers, packing houses, distribution centers, retail outlets, really anybody that has food, restaurants, catering companies, but we also work with a network of 400 different nonprofit organizations or our partner agencies. They're the front lines that, in other words, are retail outlets in the communities that distribute the food that we bring in from all our donors. Not only that, well, we have a school pantry program, a backpack program that distributes 6 meals to kids over the weekend at the school. It's a small Ziploc bag that goes into the kids' backpack on Fridays, and they get to eat over the weekend. We also provide after-school snacks for kids, and we provide summer meals for children across the 4 counties as well. Um, Along with that, we provide some nutrition education for our families and how to prepare, how to use, and to just identify and understand what certain produce is. There's different cultures in South Florida, and a lot of the cultures aren't really familiar with some of the food. Even me, coming from Texas, really wasn't familiar with dragon fruit and star fruit and some of these other pieces. And so I had to learn some different food and how to prepare them or how to eat them. And so that's what we try to do with our families as well. Make sure that they understand the benefits of a lot of the produce that's here in South Florida, whether it's grown here or imported here, and then how best to prepare it and not just do what a lot of us, mainly me, do, deep fry it. So we want to make sure that we are not only providing immediate access to families for the food, but make sure it's nutritious food. We also have 2 other parts of our mission statement other than providing immediate access to nutritious food. It's leading hunger and poverty advocacy efforts, making sure that our families and our partner agencies have a voice with elected officials and those policymakers, and that they understand the decisions they make behind their desk, whether it's at the city, the county, the state, or the federal level, have a pretty significant impact on the families that we serve. And then finally is to transform lives through innovative programming and education. And that's to make sure that we're helping families move to a place of self-sufficiency from a place of dependency, providing them with financial literacy skills, cooking skills, nutrition education, resume building, job training, and moving them to a better place.
Again, my name is Shantae Haymore Kearney. I work for Common Threads here in Miami as a program manager. I've been with Common Threads for about a year. Common Threads has been in Miami since 2009, and as a national nonprofit, we are in 9 different cities throughout the country, ranging all the way from LA to New York, Jacksonville, Chicago, Miami, and a few others. What we do here at Common Threads is we provide nutrition education for students throughout Miami-Dade Public Schools, also parents, families, teachers, faculty and staff members, and community leaders. So essentially, we're fighting childhood obesity through teaching healthy cooking skills, and we believe that cooking is a life skill that's important for everyone, especially children, to learn so that they can be empowered to make healthy choices and to live healthy lives. Really trying to bridge the gap and to close the gap of disparities of food insecurities, preventative healthcare diseases such as obesity, hypertension, and etc. So we're really proud of the work that we do. We currently partner with 40 Miami-Dade public schools and about 20 or so local nonprofits and organizations, from transition homes and shelters to enrichment programs and activities such as after-school cares and etc. But a little bit about myself. Since you asked, Pamela, I've been with Common Threads for about a year, as I mentioned. Prior to that, I was a full-time yoga teacher, and I still do teach yoga on the side. My passion in life is really to inspire people to live their best lives, to create inspiration from their own selves, their own experiences, their own lives, and to bring that inspiration and share it with the world. Prior to being a full-time yoga teacher, I was actually a marketing and communications director at Unity on the Bay, which is a spiritual community in downtown Miami. I am a new mom to a 10-and-a-half-month-old son, and I reside in North Miami area but I'm a local South Florida girl growing up in Coconut Grove. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to be a part of this powerful panel talking about this really important subject of food insecurity and hunger.
Thank you, thank you. And we're going to dive into the intersectionality of food and hunger and health disparities further on in the panel. So welcome. Miss Carla.
Well, it's a tough act to follow here with Paco and you. Well, first of all, oh, there you go. I should know how to use these ones, right? I'm in house. My name is Carla Adrian. I'm pretty sure all of you probably know. And what I do, it's not through any organization. It was all started more as a friend thing, and a couple of years later, I'm head on into the project. I don't have much to say, I guess, except for diving into what the program really is. I am a mother of four. I've been here with the coalition for 3 years. Prior to this, I sacrificed myself and I lived in Texas for a year. Sorry, I did not like it, by the way. And I'm back. I miss Miami sun. I miss Miami people. I miss my café con leche, my pastelitos. I couldn't find those over there. Prior to that, I worked for the city of Miami Beach, handling all of the revenue for the city. And prior to that, I worked for Levi Strauss & Company, the jean company, also in finance. Here locally, I am involved here, there, and everywhere, I guess. You said your passion is to inspire people. My passion is to serve. That's probably what I do best. And I probably get involved in a lot of things. I feed the homeless with my friend here every now and then. I do it to Sisters of Charity. I pick up pastelitos on Friday afternoons from a bakery and deliver it to Sisters of Charity on Saturday mornings. And pretty much I've been around through Habitats for Humanity, Camila's House, Miami Rescue Mission, and God knows how many other organizations out there. And really my passion is just to serve, to give a little bit back of all the blessings that I enjoy myself. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Well put, Carla. And Miss Gabby, last but not least.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. It's a real honor. Um, I am a homeless advocate, and the reason I'm here to talk on this panel of hunger is just to kind of give you a point of view of what hunger looks like from the sidewalk, not from a corporate office, not from a not from a place of policy making or from a political standpoint, and those are like really big issues and big problems and just big stuff for like the really smart people to figure out, and I think they can. I believe they can, but it looks different from from the sidewalk, and that's sort of the point of view that I'm here to bring you. We obviously deal with hunger. It's not the only issue that we deal with. We bring food to approximately 150 to 250 people, depending on the time of the month or the weather, the time of the year. Even during the winter, we have more homelessness here in South Florida because of the warm weather, and you can't really talk about hunger without talking about homelessness. And even that leads to other things and other things. But, today we're going to talk about hunger. And thank you for having me.
So I'm sure you'd all agree that, like fingers of a hand, this group makes a mighty fist. So we begin. 1 in 7 Americans struggle to get enough to eat, and hunger or food insecurity exists in virtually every community in the United States, and of course globally. Food insecurity, or conversely, food security, is a term that's used by the USDA, which is defined as all people in a household having enough food for an active, healthy life at all times. That having been said, I invite the panel to provide their insight on what are some ways that food insecurity affects our nation, our state, our community, or perhaps even you yourself? The question is open.
I'll speak a little bit about how food insecurity affects our population, which is generally the students. We serve students from pre-K to 8th grade. For some of our programs, and other programs is 3rd through 8th grade. As I mentioned earlier, we're actually in the schools teaching kids how to prepare healthy snacks. We have a program named Small Bites where our teachers actually facilitate the programming and teach nutrition education during the school day. And then we have an after-school program where we have chef instructors come into the kitchens with a small, intimate group of kids and teach them skills, cooking skills, knife skills, nutrition education, cultural components, and physical activity for a 9-week session. But to the base of the question of how does it affect, in this case, children, we're really passionate about teaching children how to eat healthy and giving them access to healthy foods as much as we can, because without the foundation of health and a healthy breakfast and healthy meals, the ability to learn and to focus and to function in a classroom for 8 hours, 7 hours a day is impractical. So we really believe that giving them the tools to be able to not only cook their own food when they have the opportunity, and you'd actually be surprised that many of our students do have the opportunity to cook their own foods. They may come home from schools and their parents are at work or not in the household at that point in time, and really they have the opportunity to be at a choice point and to make empowered decisions. One of the challenges that we find are access to healthy foods. So I think that's where someone like Paco comes into place, where with his Feeding South Florida as an access point. But really providing them the foundation to be successful in their school and their education, which is something that Superintendent Carvalho is really passionate about. And the district really gets behind us through serving free breakfast for every student, providing healthy options during the school day for the students, and really just doing their part to make sure that the students have the base to receive a quality education in Miami-Dade Public Schools.
Thank you.
My perspective is totally different, and it's a blessing, and probably all of us sitting here can actually take advantage of a program such as the one she's mentioning. We hear in the news, our First Lady talks about nutrition all the time. I come from a totally different perspective where food, although it's a basic need, they might not even have that. So we're coming from a place where having even a roof over your head, it's a luxury. So for the most part, children eat what they can, and even schooling, it's not even that much of a priority. So I've seen hunger and homelessness from a totally different perspective, where what you call home, it's a shack. It's 4 aluminum walls, with a piece of cloth as a door. So for kids, even when preparing boxes of clothing and stuff to send here, we tell people, because we have the tendency to give what we don't need. So you show up with toys and fancy shoes that your kids don't want to use anymore, and we have to turn it down. It's like the kids that we're serving don't need toys. The kids that we're serving don't need the expensive Nikes or the expensive, weather clothes. They live in an island where they barely have anything. Even shoes sometimes is a luxury. So from my perspective, what I do, and again, I do the smallest piece of this. I never got to tell you. I don't know if now is a good time to tell them a little bit more. I have a friend. He's a priest. And I went down to the Dominican Republic to visit him and to do some of the missionary work with him. And that's how I came across this. It was a question he posed to me. What can you do about this? And I said, well, what do you need? He said, food. And I said, for how many? And he said, can you get me 20 families to give me $20 a month? And then I said, I can try. I have enough contacts on my telephone. And I came back to Miami, of course, heartbroken from all I saw. And I reached out to all my friends, her being one of them. And I didn't get him 20. I got him 50 families that are willing to donate $20 a month. What do they get? Unfortunately, they don't get the nutritious meal. Unfortunately, they get sugar, they get flour, they get coffee, they get beans and rice. And then every now and then, if the money's enough, they might get either eggs or pasta. And that's the kind of stuff that these people see as a basic need. So we're not even talking about nutrition. This is kind of what they are able to do on a monthly basis. And believe it or not, $20 a month actually feeds a family. And it's amazing how we go here to McDonald's and we spend more than that. And we're talking about obesity and we're talking about all these other things. And I think it's a totally different perspective. And I think there is a place for all of it. And there is a place for all of us in this effort as well.
So we have conversations happening about food and about access to healthy food. It almost makes me want to say that isn't food or access to healthy food a civil right? And how did we become a nation that cannot feed its own? What do you think?
First of all, food insecurity affects so many individuals and so much of our society. When you look at crime, you look at profit, you look at taxes, government, all these things are affected by food insecurity. Folks are either going to put a roof over their head, pay their utilities, or put food on the table. And when you can't put food on the table, then desperation kicks in, and things happen. And that's how the backpack program started. I mentioned earlier, is two kids broke into a convenience store, and they got caught. And when they got caught, the policeman asked them, the older kid, who was I think 11, why they broke in, and it's because his younger brother was hungry. So folks are going to get into situations, and they're going to have to make decisions. And so that's where we come in, is to figure out ways of how do we help families offset their budget? How do we help them put healthy food on their table to make sure that they're fueling their bodies and learning, living, playing, and thriving in our community and being part of our society? As far as that healthy piece, I didn't mention earlier, but just in the state of Florida, 300 million pounds of fresh produce goes to waste every single year. So, and that was a research project done by Feeding America. If you ask the Tomato Association, they'll tell you that 300 million pounds of tomatoes go to waste every single year here in Florida. And so as a food bank network, our job is to go there and find ways to rescue that food and put it on the tables of the families that we serve. So just so you guys know, most of that food goes to waste in the fields themselves. So a lot of it is not harvested. So what we do is we work the state, the Department of Agriculture, and we work with donors to find out how do we work with that grower to reimburse that grower to put their employees to work. Make sure that their employees are getting wages so they can go and harvest those fields and then get that food to us so we can get it to the families. So far, we as a food bank we rescue about 20 million pounds of fresh produce a year. Mind you, I mentioned 300 million pounds. So there's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of families that still need that fresh produce. And the biggest issue with that produce is its perishability. So how do we either extend the life of that product, or how do we get it to the families in the right amount at the right time for those that need it? And it's working with our partner agencies, working with other partners that are currently working with families and getting that fresh produce into the hands, or that healthy product into the hands and onto the tables and into the bellies of all the families that we serve.
I'm very taken by your reference to rescuing food. And in my opening statement, I mentioned the USDA. What, if anything, is being done at the federal level, or maybe the state and local level, to create pathways so that food rescuing can be done closer to the source of the food rather than by agencies like Feeding South Florida, and thank goodness you're here, but you might describe yourself as a rescue or relief agency. So what's being done federally, legislatively?
There's a lot being done legislatively to help rescue food. There's also being a lot done legislatively to block rescuing the food.
That's what we want to hear about.
So we're fortunate in the United States. A lot of people really feel passionate about food waste, and that food for two reasons. One, because there's a lot of individuals that struggle to put food on the table, and it's just not right. So you talked about civil rights, or the right to just have food. And the other piece is the environmental piece. Should we be filling our landfills with perfectly good food? And so those are the two things that are up in Washington and somewhat in the state. And so I'll talk about some of the things that are happening for getting access to food. First and foremost, they're working hard to make sure that SNAP or food stamps are getting spread out to the families that truly need them. And then the little side comment is, for SNAP, you need to be a U.S. citizen, you need to have a job, or at least be in school, and you need to make at or below 130% of the federal poverty line. To give you an example, a family of four, $30,000 a year, then they can access SNAP benefits. That's the same percentage for free breakfast and free lunch at schools. So when Florida, and this is an anti-one, when Florida raised the minimum wage to $8.05 an hour, and the federal minimum wage stayed at $7.35, the federal poverty line stayed with the minimum wage at the federal level, not at the state level. So when you increase that minimum wage here in Florida to $8.05, now you have two working adults making $8.05 a year for 2,080 hours a year. You're looking at $33,000, $34,000 that they're making for that family. So for that extra 65 cents or that $3,000, you wiped away even more federal benefits for SNAP. You've wiped away free breakfast for your two kids. You wiped away free lunch for your two kids. And so you've put now a family, because of that $3,000 raise that they received, they're in the whole $10,000 because of some of these policies or laws that we've passed. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against raising the minimum wage, but I am against raising the minimum wage in a vacuum. Don't do it just to raise it, and then now you're stripping away all these benefits for our families. So those are some of the ways that we're helping our families with some of these policies at the federal level, and then at the state level, how we're doing things to block. And there's many, many more, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to share some of those with you.
And so you've talked about families that have a federal footprint, so to speak, in that they probably have a Social Security number, they probably are documented. What is life like in the relationship to food insecurity and federal access to federal programming for families? And there are many families here in South Florida who may not be documented.
I think that's a real issue that we have, and he kind of touched upon at the federal and at the state level. There's an additional level, the local level, and that is probably one that Gavi probably deals with, which is all these prohibitions about feeding homeless on the street and about walking Miami Rescue Mission. And in the very corner of Miami Rescue Mission, you see a slew of people that are homeless, and you say, well, why aren't they going to Miami Rescue Mission? Well, that's because it comes with ties. For you to be able to access these benefits, you gotta make a promise to clean up. Something is attached to it, whether it be religiously or whether it be in terms of benefits. So that's something that probably Gavi deals with the people that she feeds. And I have actually been on the street with Gavi when the police makes the homeless move somewhere else. And I think that's a real issue, and that's the issue also with the immigrants. You have immigrants that are doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do, but yet those minimum wages don't even reach them. And then you're dealing with them being in a community somewhere down in Homestead, as we all picture it. But it actually is the same people that go to your Publix, that go to your church, that go to your same communities where you're at. And these people do not have access to any of that. So it's great, I guess, that to have organizations such as yours and yours as well, because you are not asking for a driver's license to be able to be fed. And so does Gavi. She touches a different group of people that neither one of us is here actually addressing.
Gabby.
And if I may, in terms of the immigrant population, we see it from a different perspective with the children. So we work with schools that are specifically Title I, that meet the criteria of having at least 80% of their population on free and or reduced lunch. Um, and with that, and our relationship with the district, we've been able to partner with Project Upstart, and through that, Title I migrant program, which is down in Homestead, Verde Gardens, Carrefour supportive housing, and these other types of communities that serve the students of these migrant families that are in schools, but also partnering with our community organizations that serve them outside of school. So our method at Common Threads is really about creating systemic change, and systemic support, knowing that the students are one population, but without being able to influence their parents or their teachers or other community leaders with the proper nutrition education so that they can be role models for their students, and so that they understand that when they do have access to healthy foods, how to cook with it, what to do with it, what their options are, even when they don't have access to healthy foods. We have one particular menu or program that is specifically guided towards non-perishable food items that anyone can get at a grocery store or corner store that they may have access to. So canned foods and pantry items and things of that nature, sharing with them how they can use that in a healthy way, so that they can be empowered to make those decisions. And going back to the first question, just about food insecurity and how it really affects people, we see it every day in our programs. The children who use the meal that they get at the after school program as their dinner. They may want to take some home to their families, to their brother, to their sister, because they don't have that food. And everyone knows that in the summertime it's even worse when the kids aren't in school. So partnering with other organizations who are making an impact and really widening and broadening our reach, because we can't do it alone, and hence the reason why we have a panel that reflects various different access points and touch points of the community and healthy food and food availability.
Thank you.
Immigration has always been a touchy subject, and it's even more so now, during an election cycle. So for us, we work with our partner agencies. We work with our families, and one of the things that policy has put, or the elected officials have put in place in policy, is even if your parents are not a U.S. citizen, but your children are, they're potentially eligible for certain benefits, including SNAP or food stamp benefits. So if your children are born here, and they're below a certain poverty line, they would be eligible for SNAP. But one of the things I like to share with folks is folks come here to help, to escape political persecution for whatever reasons. They're here for a better life. And the folks that we work with, most of the folks that we work with and we see, especially in the immigrant population, are going to be the folks working with our growers or working with restaurants or some sort of catering company. So it boils down to this. The people that are actually, for instance, the healthy salad in that brown bag over there, I'm sure everything in there was picked by somebody. It just didn't show up on the shelf, or it just didn't show up in the box. It was picked by somebody. So the people that are helping to put food on our table are the people that don't have food on their table. And that's where you talk about, is that fair? Is that just? Is that right? It's not. So when you look at someone, and this is, people are picking food all day, but they don't have any. And so that's almost cruel, right? So that's how, we try to work with our populations as best we can. And I shared with Shantae earlier, a lot of folks don't really know how to use some of that food. So it's up to us to really not only provide it, but educate them as much as possible to help them use that food.
That's a powerful paradox that you've just presented. Thank you. Gabby, before we move on, I'd love to give you a chance to weigh in.
I wanted to address what you had said earlier about food being a right isn't it a basic human right? And how did we become a nation that can't feed its own? I wanted to address that. I think a lot of that has to do with the perception that we have, and I have always been one of them, that this is a problem of such a gigantic scale that what can one person, what can I do about it? I mean, this is something that's made in big decisions are made in corporate offices. The policies are legislated, somewhere where lawyers talk. Like, what does that, any of that have to, so there's a real disconnect with how hunger affects us when we're not the one that's hungry. You follow me? So if you're the one that's hungry, obviously it's affecting you. But if you're not going hungry, you're disconnected from the problem. You're removed from it. And I think a lot of that has to do with just a lack of awareness, a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding, the inability to know how to deal with it, so we just ignore it. We don't make eye contact when somebody's at a corner panhandling. We don't see the humanness in them because it makes us uncomfortable. And if we can get past being uncomfortable and realize that it is everybody's problem, because that affects every other part of the society and the community that we live in. And if you can understand that by ignoring that one person, there's a whole slew of a domino effect that continues, that does affect you, even if you are disconnected, even if you're not the one that's hungry. And if you kind of see that you don't have to be in a corporate office, and you don't have to be a stuffed suit, and you don't have to be a policymaker to make a difference, and you kind of take ownership. I mean, we are our brother's keeper, and I'm not here to talk religion, but if we feel ownership of our community, of our world, not just on a big scale, but with the person that's right next to you, and the person that's at your street corner, and homelessness and hunger is no longer, it's primarily in the downtown, urban areas, but it's not, it's reaching out into the suburbs too. We see them, we just don't see them because we don't want to. And I would encourage each and every one of you to get past that fear, and maybe just engage, one-on-one with one person, and you make a difference in one person's life, like Mother Teresa said, if you can't feed 100 people, then feed one, one person at a time, one meal at a time.
Beautifully put. Thank you. Hunger is everybody's problem. We often assume that hunger and poverty go hand in hand, but poverty is not the single and, in fact, the ultimate determinant of food insecurity. I think we've been touching on that during the course of this conversation thus far. Miami is often referred to as such an unusual city where we have very rich folks living right next door to very poor folks and everything in between. I'd like to spend a little time talking about hunger and food insecurity and how it affects people in different ways. And I'd like to mention some specific groups. We always, again, work to take a race and equity focus in these conversations. And so I'd like to invite you over the next several minutes to touch upon how hunger or food insecurity could affect the senior population, the African American population, the Latino population, rural hunger, as well as child hunger. The floor is open.
I'll take as many as you want me to take, but I'll start with the seniors. So everybody knows, I'm sure. I mean, we're speaking to folks that are really engaged in our community, and as are the panelists. So everything I'm about to say is probably something that you've already heard and may not want to hear again. But camera's running, so you can't really go anywhere, right? We work with a lot of different folks, AARP, the Miami Marlins, different organizations, primarily to serve the senior populations because of they've worked, they're in their time where it's time to hopefully enjoy the rest of their life, but we're in a situation where there's folks have come down to retire here. They came down to retire and were promised a certain life, promised a certain amount of that they were going to pay, and all of a sudden, in 2007, 2008, everything drops out, and then everything just started skyrocketing. So a lot of the seniors that moved here from up north are having to deal with certain situations different than the seniors that already lived here, and have seen the rents go up, the cost of living go up, and so we find ourselves working with seniors who one, lack companionship, and that's a very sad situation where seniors don't have their family visiting them, their family calling them, anybody coming by. So they have advocates or folks that come by and check up on them, or neighbors come and check up on them, make sure that they're still there. And then we have our seniors that unfortunately, either one or the other, feed their food to their pets or eat their pet food because they want to make sure their pets are eating, and then they'll eat what they have. And so that's where we try to go in there, and especially some of the apartment complexes that work with the senior population. We go there on a monthly basis and not only provide food, but have them come down and work together and volunteer to pack the boxes for each other, and then help each other. And then we have some of our volunteers come in, and if they can't take their food box, we take them up for them. But the senior population obviously is on a fixed income, can't really make ends meet. So when you're making $660 or $800 a month on SSI or Social Security, and you're having to pay rent, food, and medication, food is probably the last thing on your mind, even though the irony is, in order to take some of that medication, you need to take it with food. And so there's this paradox, as you mentioned earlier, where you need the medication, you need the food to take with the medication, but you can't afford both. So that's where we try to come in and help them.
I would like to add to that, and my friend here, which by the way she is, and I love her to death. I have to repeat what Mother Teresa said, and that is, well, now a Saint Mother Teresa. That what the world it's hungry of is not food, but love. And to that, I'm going to share, you talk about the senior. I visit this ALF facility, and just so you know what effect you have on people, she has Alzheimer's. She doesn't remember anybody, but she remembers me. And she knows that I'm going to come on Sunday to see her. That should tell you something of what impact you can have when you just simply reach out. And I'm not doing anything magical. I'm just there. That's all. But more into the question, a lot of us have the perception that you're hungry and homeless out of your own doing. It's because you made some kind of decision in life that you screwed up your life. And I really have to disagree with that at so many levels, and I know she probably would too. The people, you might ask, why in the Dominican Republic if I have so many homeless here at home, right? And I do a little bit of both, but the people in the Dominican Republic, just to say that, although I visit other countries too, you're not homeless and hungry because you have a drug problem. You're not even hungry and homeless because you're poor. It's institutionalized. You were born into that. You have no home, you have no education, you have nothing. And the government allows this to go on because they say people don't ask questions. I don't know how true that is or not. But it's a different perspective of what really goes on. And it's not by a choice of their own. They just don't have any other choice. And for me, that is something very profound, because here in the United States, there is really no reason for anybody to go hungry. Like he said, all the food that goes to waste, there really isn't a reason. But when you look outside of your own backyard, then you really see everything that we're lacking. And there are so many nations that are rich, and I'm not going to get all, into all the politics of this, but it is a different kind of poverty. It is a different kind of hunger. and it is one that they did not go look for themselves. And in fact, it is not one that they can solve probably in their lifetime, which is even sad because there isn't much you can do. And at that point, you got to be happy to feed 50 if you cannot feed any more than that.
Generational hunger.
I want to add something to that. I've heard that referred to that kind of hunger, that kind of poverty as stupid poverty, like just stupid poverty on a worldwide level that there's no reason for it to exist. As far as the government allowing it, there are laws, and we write the laws however we want them to be, and we write laws that favor us as a country where it's okay for our farmers to protect their investments, but it's not okay for farmers in Africa to protect theirs. We write the laws that favor us and keep generations and generations and generations of people enslaved to their grandparents' debts, that because of don't ask questions, it just continues for generations and generations. And like I said, it's legal, and we write the trade laws and we write those laws, but there are higher laws. And if it's okay with the government, then don't let it be okay with you, because this is our government, no? Don't let it be okay with you. That's not okay, that generations and generations are kept hostage and will never get out of poverty because of the way a law was written that protects our farmers can protect their crops, but the farmers in other countries can't protect theirs. That can't be okay with us as human beings. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And thank you to the panelists for those powerful responses. The American Academy of Pediatrics issued a statement in 2015, took a position on promoting food security for all children, and they also weighed in on hunger. And this is partly taken from the executive summary of that testimonial. 16 million US children, 21% live in households without consistent access to adequate food, speaking to generational hunger. After multiple risk factors are considered, children who live in households that are food insecure, even at the lowest levels, are likely to be sick more often, recover from illnesses more slowly, and be hospitalized more frequently. Lack of adequate healthy food can impair a child's ability to concentrate and perform well in school, and is linked to higher levels of behavioral and emotional problems from preschool through adolescence. Welcome to our world here at the Early Learning Coalition. I'd like each of the panelists to take an opportunity, if you wish, to weigh in on that statement. And Shante, earlier you mentioned the safety nets, the various safety nets for children. Paco, you also mentioned safety nets about when folks fall through the gap. So I'd invite you to respond to the statement, as well as any input that you'd like to provide on safety nets relating to food insecurity.
Yeah, I'm happy to respond first. So, as I've mentioned, Common Threads really tries to position itself in such a way that we can touch children at the root and at the base of where they go every single day to school. And with that being said, not only are we providing nutrition education, but we're really positioning ourselves more as a preventative healthcare solution. We know, based on evaluations, research, and studies, and to be quite honest, it's not rocket science to figure out that healthy eating in a preventative way would then decrease preventable diseases such as obesity, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and diabetes, and all of those types of things that we face. 35.5% of Miami-Dade public school students are currently obese. So that's an astronomical percentage, and it's preventable should you have the information and the resources that you need in order to get the the nutrition, the access to food that would prevent those types of things. So, repeat that.
And to some extent, that is also tied into poverty, because
Oh, absolutely.
healthy food is more expensive, and it's cheaper to buy something off the dollar menu that's going to feed your kids.
Absolutely. So that's a great point. So we speak about this a lot in all of our trainings, whether it's to students, but mostly also to adults. We have family cooking classes and parent workshops that we do. And we actually try and bust the myth or the assumption that healthy food is, yeah, that healthy food is more expensive. And yes, it takes cash, it takes resources. Like if you live in a food desert, you may not be able to go buy healthy produce that's in walking distance when you don't have a car or you're only taking the bus and things of that nature. But the paradox that I think exists is that you would think that someone who doesn't have a lot of money to purchase food would not be a victim to obesity and these types of other diseases. But the unfortunate thing is that the types of foods that they do have access to are high calorie, very high processed, high in sodium, and all these other types of things that you may not even need to eat that much of in order to be affected in a negative manner through with your health. That, with lack of exercise, a stagnant lifestyle, unfortunately, a lot of uh, maybe the environment is a negative, non unfulfilling. It's I'm sorry. Get back on track. And perhaps the environment may be not very enriched emotionally. So you have the perfect petri dish of unhealthy living, mind, body, and spirit, really. Which, as I spoke about my own personal journey and passion through teaching yoga and meditation and mindfulness, like the connection through mind, body, and your own soul, it shows up in every aspect of what you do, how you interact with people, how you learn, the dreams that you can see yourself fulfilling and accomplishing in life. We're so fortunate to be in a time where we have a two-time sitting African American president and possibly coming on the verge of having our first woman president, perhaps. But how can a child who doesn't even have um, a wooden door with a lock on their house or a meal to fill themselves up um, physically and emotionally, and perhaps their parents aren't around and available for that emotional support, which is so much needed, how can they ever dream to be a Barack Obama or even a Hillary Clinton or anything in between? So, we know that healthy eating is a foundation for a positive life down the road through all those different avenues. Our work here at Common Threads is to partner with other organizations who believe the same thing, and then create the change that we can make individually and as an entity, as an organization, to really extend our reach beyond what we feel our capacity currently is. And I hope that answered your question, but I feel very passionate about that.
It did, thank you. And it really summed up for me as you were responding that kind of sense of a dream deferred, and perhaps a dream deferred by generational hunger, generational food insecurity. And I do want to share, for the sake of transparency, that the reference to paradox that I used so wittily earlier, actually, I came to the table today planning to put that question, pose the question to the panelists because of the hunger paradox reference and the Common Threads website. And I also want to add that many of my points of view today were largely crafted through the Feeding South Florida website. So thank you to you both. Any other feedback before we move on?
I'll share one thing. When we touched on it a little bit, so you have a circle, and in it you have a child that's not eating well, and the statement referenced sick more often, doesn't get healthier easy. Just a lot of issues that come with not eating properly. So you don't eat properly. You get sick more often, which drives healthcare costs up and all kinds of other stuff, but that's another topic. And then you have poor education. And with poor education comes low paying jobs. Low paying jobs means you can't afford food. Can't afford food means healthcare issues, education issues, low paying job. So it's just a constant cycle. And so granted, some people are going to be exceptions. And when people say, well, if I can do it, other people can do it. And I'm sure everybody's heard that. Or why don't they get better paying jobs? So the thing is this: if everybody was created equal, I'd be as fast as Usain Bolt. I'm not. So it's not going to happen. Other people respond differently to different stimulus or stimuli and respond differently to adversity. Some people drive through it. Other people are overcome by it. And so when it comes to health issues, it's the same thing. Our body responds differently to different foods or different fuels. And so with that said, the majority of the individuals are not going to respond well to poor food or lack of food. And hence you'll end up with generational poverty and generational hunger.
And more people sleeping on the street. Because they won't, no, but it's just a continuation of that. The kid goes to school hungry. He doesn't do well in school. He's going to eventually drop out of school or get kicked out of school, can't go to college, can't get a good job. And the cycle continues. And then more and more people on the sidewalk, and then more and more, of us going, somebody's got to do something. It's just, they're all connected. It's all connected. And it is all of our problems. Because it's the world we live in, and we have to, each and every one of us, I think, take ownership of the big picture of the problem in whatever capacity you can, or it's just going to keep getting worse.
To that, I want to add, for those people that every now and then, and I don't see anybody here, but that we go out to lunch together, whoever packs whatever leftovers, they know to give it to me. What do I do with it? I drive 27th Avenue all the way down home, and whoever is homeless on the street will get that container of food. And you will be surprised that every day I find one that's hungry. And that didn't cost me anything. It was going to go to waste. So I guess what I'm saying with this is kind of jumping on what she said. It is our problem. That person that you don't feed might break into your house and rob all your values. So it is our problem. We all can do a little bit about it. My daughter has sold lollipops in school and donated the money to feed the homeless. There's so many little things that can be done. I guess what would I have to say last? Open your eyes and open your heart. And with that, you might be able to open your wallet a little bit easier.
Very well put. Thank you. I'm thinking a couple of things. I'm thinking all of you have really helped hit home for me today the term the power of one. It just takes one. But at the same time, I'm thinking about what a powerful village we have, not only sitting at the panel, but across this community. I'm so thankful that there are so many people doing so much to focus on the issue of hunger and food insecurity and so many other issues, and yet paradoxically, we have so far to go. I do have several more questions, but we are coming down to the last 15 minutes of our cafe. So what I would do is invite each panelist to make a closing statement of your choice, and then we're going to take it to the audience for a few questions.
So I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and everybody in TV land who's watching. Hunger Action Month was started a few years ago by Feeding America as a way to raise awareness about the issue of hunger in America. And Feeding South Florida has been participating in it for a long time. I've been here 4.5 years, and we've been participating every year. And the color of hunger is orange. So we encourage folks to wear orange and to promote orange during September. to make sure, and when people ask, it's because of the 784,000 plus individuals that struggle to put food on the table. I'm not sure if you guys have seen, but a Bank of America building went orange, the Freedom Tower went orange, which was a huge thing for us. So we thank Miami-Dade College for helping us raise awareness the issue of hunger, and we got a lot of feedback from that. So having that tower go orange was huge. And so there's a lot of different companies that do that, a lot of websites that go orange for us. So we call it the 30 ways in 30 days to get involved. Monday was Mustache Monday, so we wore big orange mustaches. But find your way of either raising awareness about hunger or raising awareness about the issue that you care passionately about.
I would leave you with the request to I would encourage you all to look around the streets as you drive home today, and perhaps look into your hearts a little bit and think about the world that we're living in and what we're leaving behind for our children, for our grandchildren. I'm a grandmother also, and look at what your place is in this society, and how you can fit into this, and how you can make a difference, one person at a time, one meal at a time, one life at a time, and to to try to bridge that disconnect. Don't be so far removed from the problem if you're not hungry, because it is everybody's problem. And the kid that went to school hungry is going to drop out of school tomorrow. He's going to be hungry. He's not going to be able to support his kids, and he will have them. And if you keep ignoring him, he might break into your house, and the cycle continues. And it is everybody's problem. I would encourage you all to look in the mirror and be the change that we all want to see in the world.
I am actually going to close with a story, short story. I went once out there with Gabby to feed the homeless, and I love her because she loves them. And she really does. She truly does. She's very passionate about what she does, and she knows her street, and she knows her people, and the streets know her very well. I went one night out there with Gabby, and we went to our last stop, and this young man, after I fed him, I served him his food, he sat on the sidewalk, he ate his food, and after he ate his food, he came up to me, and he said to me, "Would you mind giving me a hug?" And I just smiled. I didn't respond. I hugged him. I hugged him very tight. I was probably choking him. And he whispered in my ear, "Will you pray for me?" And I said, "I will." And I said, "And I will do so by name." His name was Brian. And he was not any stranger. He was just one of us. He shared with me his story, how he ended up on the streets. He says, "And I can't believe all the bad decisions I have made have brought me here today. And I used to be one of them that used to spit at the homeless on the street." And now he found himself there. So for all of us that have the blessing to have food and to have a roof over our heads, don't close your eyes to everything else that's going on out there. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, be good at it and go for it, because one person does make a difference.
Thank you for sharing that story. My final words are, as we've been speaking a lot about the disparities and insecurities between different socioeconomic classes and races and all those types of things, what I would like to share is that healthy cooking, especially for children, is important no matter where they come from. I'm of the personal belief that everyone is at risk, to your point. There's some populations that are at higher risk than others. However, our research has shown that children who have hands-on experiential opportunities to make their own food, to learn about food, to be a part of the grocery shopping process with their parents, whether you live on Key Biscayne or whether you live in Overtown, it doesn't matter. They will more likely have an increased likeliness to fruits and vegetables, will request and desire home cooked meals more often, um, will be more engaged in the home process with their parents. We know that families who eat together, dinner on a regular basis, the children are more successful. They do better in school. They are more likely to stay off of drugs and to get into those types of trouble. So this isn't really just about teaching kids from that neighborhood or from those types of schools the skill of cooking for life. This is about teaching everyone how to eat and be healthier. I have learned a tremendous amount from just working with Common Threads in this past year. I would love to encourage all of you guys to visit our website. When you do so and sign up for our e-newsletter, you'll receive our Cooking for Life handbook, which is an 8-week handbook of all budget-friendly meals, meal planning, grocery shopping tips, and so much more. I use it at home on a regular basis. And if you're here in the local Miami area, if I may plug an event that we have coming up, we have our Family Takeover Day coming up at Johnson & Wales University on September 24th, which is a Saturday. We're going to be highlighting all of our community programming and really opening the doors to everyone to come and enjoy this free event from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They'll have family cooking classes, food demo, live music, art, yoga classes, and so much more. If you're in the room and you're interested, I have flyers and that I can share with you. But if you're online and you're interested, you can visit commonthreads.org, go to the events page, or just come to Johnson & Wales at 11 a.m. And thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. We're so proud to be here.
I've been deeply moved, greatly educated, and deeply motivated today. I hope all of you have too. This really takes us back to the reason why we began doing the cafes more than a year ago now, or just about a year ago, to really engage in authentic conversations, especially in areas that relate to basic inequalities here in the U.S. and around the world. And on that note, I would like to, we have about 5 minutes for questions. If any of our participants.
My name is Carrie Allen. I want to thank you all for your presentations today. Very inspiring. Paco, you mentioned something, and it takes me back many years when I was in college, picketing for Cesar Chavez in Massachusetts. And I think about, just here in Homestead, all our families that do work the fields and travel the East Coast looking for work and what have you. And in California now, they have just been given overtime if they work more than 60 hours a week. For us, if we work more than 40 hours, we get overtime. So we look at the inequities. But one of the things that when you were talking was about the farm subsidies. And those are a big ticket item for some senators and representatives in Washington from those states that are agricultural, and Florida being one of them, because they're paid not to plant. Or they're paid to plant and food goes bad in the fields. And so that is something that, what is the take on that in terms of people being really aware of that? I mean, we live in an urban setting, so a lot of people would not realize that, but they are paid not to plant their fields.
So that's a very complex, it's not very complicated, but it's more complex issue when it comes to the, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the Farm Bill, and there's a nutrition component and there's the farm component. And that's where the nutrition education comes, that's where SNAP comes, that's where TFAP, or the Emergency Food Assistance Program, but that's also where a lot of the farm subsidies are placed. That's one thing. And so the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, will do two things with growers. They'll contract with growers across the country to make sure they have enough commodities for their schools and for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or back in the day it was called the Cheese and Butter Program. So they do that. What else? The other thing that the USDA does is what's called a bonus buy. And a bonus buy is whenever a commodity is flooding the market, USDA will go out there and try to, and so when you flood the market, the price of this commodity goes down, which ends up screwing the donor or the farmers in such a way that it's easier for them to cut their losses, take the insurance money, and not harvest. So instead of doing that, what USDA goes and does, we're going to buy up all the cranberries, all the raisins, all the chickens, all the catfish. We're going to buy this up, stabilize the market, remove all this surplus from the market, and get it out to food banks. And so we're the beneficiaries, and our families are the beneficiaries of this bonus buy. So that's one area. And a lot of people don't know about the subsidies, and it's probably more profitable for a grower to destroy their crops or not harvest them and just till them under than it is to pick them because of certain price points in the market. But the other piece is when we're working with the State Department of Ag, it's really the product that a lot of our growers overplant just to make sure that their contracts are going to be fulfilled. Because the weird thing is, and I think a lot of you may have heard this already, is if the cucumber's curly or the zucchini's too curly, the stores are not going to buy it because it doesn't look good, even though it's perfectly good. So the farmer doesn't know what's going to be curly, what's not going to be curly, so they're going to overplant. And so what we get is the curly cucumber, and we get the curly zucchini, and we get these big potatoes and just random stuff that you won't find at a store. And so what we do is we work with the State Department or the Department of Agriculture or the Florida Department of Agriculture to help the grower reimburse their employees to go out there and pick these crops. Or when they're on the coal line is where they pick the good stuff or they leave the good stuff to go to market, and the bad stuff they'll coal it out, and we'll get those coals. So that's where, and then they package it, and then we reimburse the farmer or the grower, the packing house for that packaging. So those are two different areas where we've been working with the feds on one side and then the state on the other, not just for the subsidy and for the reimbursement, but also for tax credits, because forever the farmers have never had a tax credit. Anybody can get a tax write-off on what they donate except farmers. Now they're starting to do that, but it's very low right now. Thank you.
I think we have one more question.
Good afternoon, actually. Sorry if my question is a little controversial, but I think that's what you guys are here for, maybe enlighten us. So I hear a lot of, it only takes one to make a difference. It only takes one to make that change. But sometimes for a lot of us, it only takes one to discourage us from helping out. When you stick your hand out the window to help someone out, and then you come to find out later that person pulls away in a better car than yours. Or you find out that this person, maybe, I don't like to be judgmental.
I'm dying to answer.
I don't like to
never
be
seen that
judgmental,
happen.
but sometimes you feel that person deserves it. I know it sounds ugly, but, if someone who is, raping children, stealing from seniors, murdering, their fellow brothers and sisters, you're not going to have that, you're not going to feel bad for that person if that's where life takes them. When you have people who deserve better and they're in worse situations.
I have an
how do
answer
you
for
help
you.
the world?
Every light on the table is on.
How do you help how do you help the world maybe not let that one person distort your mentality?
I'm going to tell you how. And I'm sorry, I don't know what permission I have to talk here on a religious basis or not, but I will tell you how you discourage that. You believe. That's how you do that. You can believe that everybody is out on the street out to get you, or you can just not worry about it. I used to drive down the street with this priest friend of mine that I mentioned to you guys. We're very close. And I learned from him because wherever we go, he always has singles in his pocket. And wherever he goes and somebody gets close to him, he gives them $1. I actually used to reach out before he did, and he used to laugh. He said, "So you learned?" I said, "I learned from the best." And I will tell you, My husband is the first one to say, you're giving them money and they're going to go spend it in drugs, they're going to go spend it in beers. And my children will respond. That is between them and God. What I do, it's between me and them. What they do with that, it's between them and God. And that's how you don't get discouraged. Because we're always looking for an excuse not to do the right thing because it's easier. Now I'm going to give you an excuse to always find an excuse to do the right thing no matter what.
Thank you, Carla. And Gabby?
Another way to not get discouraged is to become informed about the facts and the data. And the facts are that there is a very, very small percentage of homelessness that is in fact going to behave in that way that you described, that is very much discouraging. It's a very, very small percentage. If you read about the data, and they're not all alcoholics, and they're not all drunks, and they're not all drug addicts, there's a lot of mental illness out there. That was not a choice that they made. We don't have a mental health system in this country that supports that. That's an entirely different topic, and it just gets bigger and bigger. But the way to not become discouraged about that is to get educated on the facts and on the data, and the data will show you that there is a very, very small percentage of the homeless that are actually in that situation that you're describing.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Next month, we bring it full circle. We come into October, and that is where we began 1 year ago with a provocative conversation about the Hispanic identity. And I'm being given the mic. Nichelle, closing question?
Okay, I have more of a comment. I want to say thank you for being here today. I think one of the most important things about talking about hunger when we talk about the United States is contextualizing the situations in which hunger exists. I think you spoke a little bit earlier about the institutional and the structural ways that hunger is positioned in other countries, but we failed to see how it's positioned here in the U.S. I read maybe last week on Twitter, I thought it was such an ingenious quote. She said, 150 years ago, we had slaves who worked in food production for free. And then 150 years later, we have people working for $6 more or $7 more to produce the same food that unfortunately they're unable to pick. So there's lots of things that continue, that are structural, that continue to produce this hunger, but we victim blame the people who are the results, who are on the consequential side of that hunger. So I just wanted to raise that point. I think that's something we need to think about. We need to think about the context that produces it. Also, the fact that labor is racialized. And I think when we talk about people who are working in the fields and those immigrants who are out there, it's like it's okay for them because it's better for them than in their home countries. And there's a racial aspect to labor, which has always been. And there's a gender aspect to labor, which has always been. And we discount those bodies, and we discount their place in society and their access to food and their right to access food. That's it.
Thank you for bringing it home, Nichelle. I hope you all have been challenged today, and I thank you for coming.